Hi guys, magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. At nandito ulit ako para mag-discuss ng panibago nating topic tungkol sa developing SQL databases. At ang topic po natin po for tonight ay ang monitoring performance using SQL trace and extended events introduction. So let's start. So this module provides us with instruction and devices to develop our hands-on skills on the following topics. So for tonight, we have 4 topics na may i-cover. Yung number 1 is yung monitoring SQL Server database with profiler tool. Number 2, monitoring SQL Server database with Windows tools. And number 3, monitoring SQL Server databases with Microsoft Azure tool. And number 4, monitoring SQL Server database with extended events. So let's start. So exercise 1, monitoring SQL Server database with profiler tool. So it is a tool to monitor the performance of the transact SQL statement running on this SQL server. So, in addition, you can also collect information about the duration of the query, number of the reads and writes, and the system on which the query is run. So, the performance metrics data is saved in a trace file that can be accessed as and when required. So with SQL Server Profiler, you can perform the following. So number 1, we will create a trace. Number 2, watch the trace result as it runs. Number 3, store the trace results in a database table. So and number 4, play the trace result whenever is required. So task 1, we will use the profiler tool. So step 1, ensure you have powered on the required devices and connect to Plab SQL1. So okay. And from the Plab SQL 01 desktop, click Server and click Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Ayan. So from the server, type database engine and server name natin, Plab SQL 01, and then connect. Alright. So, step 3, the SQL Server Management Studio open, and in the Object Explorer, click to expand the Databases folder. And from the Tools menu, click SQL Server Profiler. Okay, check natin ito. Saan ito? So, Tools. So, from Tools, wait lang. So from tools, click natin tong SQL Server Profiler. Ayan. So the SQL Server Profiler starts and the connect to server dialog box appears. Again, retain the input details and click connect. Ayan. So the SQL Server Profiler opens the trace properties windows. So on the general tab in the trace names box, type the following. Capture plan. And so capture plan. And next, retain the remaining details and select to save the file. Save the file. Alright, click the browse icon appearing next to save file box and click save. And then step 8, the trace properties dialog box appears. So the path to selected location is displayed in the save to file box. So click the event selection tab. Ayun. Click event selection tab. And the event selection tab opens, displaying the events and event columns to trace selected. So click the show all columns. Ayan. And next, in the trace properties window, click the column filters button. Column filters button. Yan. And next, the edit filter dialog box appears. And select database name from the list of the component. Database name. Alright. So step 12, in the right bottom pane of the edit filter dialog box, expand the like node by checking the plus symbol. Like node, yan. And step 13, so an empty box appears below the like node. So in the text box, enter the name of the databases as follows. So enter natin to dito. Record pa ba ako? Alright. So, continue. Click OK to close the edit filter dialog box. Oops, mali. So, edit filter dialog and click OK. Then step 13, the trace property dialog box appears. Click the show all events. Show all events. Yan, and expand the performance node in the events column. Expand the performance node in the events column. Show pan XML. Show pan XML. Ayan, so na-expand na natin yung performance. So hanapin natin yung show plan XML. Ayan. Click the show plan XML. So notice the performance parameters associated with this event is selected by a default. So step 15 tayo. Select AdventureWorks DW16 CTP3 from the list of databases and click new query. So select AdventureWorks. Ayan. So, select AdventureWorks DW16 CTP3 and create tayo ng new query natin. What happened? Alright. So, copy natin ito. Yun. So this query retrieves the distinct rows from dim customer table that have matching rows in the fact survey responses table. So it will retrieve the customer key, first name, last name columns from the dim customer table and the customer key column from the fact survey response table. And F5 natin. Yan. So, as you can see, ang sabi dito, the query is displayed with the query type and the fetches that specific information of the customer from the customer table. So, the query is successfully executed. So, it displays the list of records from the customer table natin. So, step 7, to go back to the SQL Server Profiler, click SQL Server Profiler. Yan. Yan. So view the perform and in the SQL Server windows in the event columns, click show plan XML. Okay. And step 19, navigate to the location where you save the capture plan trace file. So I think ito. So open daw to. Ayan. So a context menu capture a piece. From the context menu, click read the execution plan. So okay, from the context menu, read the execution plan. Hindi ko alam. So with the exercise 2, we will monitoring SQL Server database with Windows tool. So System Monitor is a graphical tool that can be used to measure the performance of SQL Server running on Microsoft Windows Server operating system. So these tools allows you to view the object of SQL Server performance of other objects such as processors, memory, threads, and cache and counters to monitor events. So, task 1 tayo, work with system monitors. In this task, we will use the system monitor tool to monitor the performance of system resources. So, we will collect data from specific counters to determine the utilization of resources such as processor and memory. So, go to the desktop by closing all the active windows. So, X muna natin ito lahat. Yan, maski ito. Sige, save muna natin. Yan. So, step 2, right-click on the Windows icon. A context menu appears. From the context menu, click Run. Click Run. Yan. So, the Run dialog is open. Text box and type the following. Then, click OK. Ayan. So, the Performance Monitor window open. And next, on the left side under Performance, click Performance Monitor. Ayan. So, view the chart. So, the graph on the right side shows the values of the percent processor's time counter by default. Below the graph, there are 5 sub-actions. Yung 5, ito yung last, which is the display the last value that was captured for this counter. And number 2, yung average. So, it displays the average value for the time taken by this counter. Number 3, yung minimum. Minimum, it displays the minimum value for the time taken by this counter. And number 4, maximum, it displays the maximum value for time taken by this counter. And duration displays the total time of running of this counter. So step 6 tayo, to add other counters to be monitored. From the toolbar in the right pane, click the add icon. To. Yan, so the add counter dialog box appears. So in the available counter list, select the memory and click memory. Where is the memory? Yun. So click the memory and the usage of the system resources. And the step 8, double click the memory counter. Yan. And all the parameters that can be monitored are displayed. Select available bytes. Select available to check the bytes of the memory available for the user system. And click add to move the selected counter. Yan. To the added counter list. And next, the available counter list, select the physical disk counter to monitor the performance of the hard disk drives on the system. and double click the physical disk counter. So select the physical disk counter to monitor physical disk. So double click the physical counter and the parameters under. So click avg.disk. So avg.disk bytes read. Ayan. So to obtain the average number of bytes transferred from IDs during a read operation. So then hold the control key and select avg bytes write to obtain the average number of bytes transferred to IDs during a write operation. So hold natin itong control key and select avg disk bytes to write. To obtain the average number of bytes transferred to IDs. Control and click. So then hold the then click add to move the selected counters to added counters list. Read muna. Read and write. Alright. So next step, so in the available counters list, click this SQL Server Buffer Manager counter. Yan, so SQL Server Manager counter. Buffer manager pala. Yan. Then so the SQL Server Management can be used to track the memory usage when the system stores data pages and monitor the physical input or output operation when the system reads and writes data pages. So in number 4, it increases the memory space in the disk to enhance buffer cache of data pages. So double click the SQL Server Buffer Manager counter. Yan. And the list of the parameters under SQL Server Buffer Manager counter is displayed. So click the checkpoint pages. Yan. To obtain the number of unwanted pages flashed to disk per seconds, then hold Control key and select lazy write select. Put select lazy writes. Yan. To obtain and click add. Yan. So click OK to close add counters. Yan. So the performance monitor windows is displayed with the graphical data of the selected counters processes. Yan. So view the processes that are currently active. Alright. Then next tayo. So exercise 3, monitoring SQL Server database with extended events. So extended events in SQL Server is a general event handling tool that record data related to the task occurring in the system. So all the extended events work in a similar manner as the SQL profiler, but it is more beneficial to the user. It is uses less of the system resources and is highly scalable. So X na natin muna to. So gawa tayo ulit ng panibago natin. Click OK. Then from the Object Explorer, right click SQL Server Agent. Right click and click Start. Yan. So nag-open na. So nag-start na. So from the Object Explorer, expand the management folder and click extended events. Ayan. And to create a new query from the query ribbon, click new query. Ngayon, magka-create tayo ng event session natin for one event. Okay. Yan. So in this query, we will create an event session named system_monitor performance for the SQL server that query post execution show plan. So this statement specified that the action to be taken on the event is specified in the SQL server that SQL_text action objects. Then run. Yan. Okay. So from the Object Explorer, expand management folder, extended event session, and right click system monitor performance. Click system wala ako nakikita. So skip muna tayo. System monitor event session is started. So from the Object Explorer, right click system monitor performance. So system_performance.